The galaxy was old. It had seen the rise and fall of empires that lasted longer than Earth's sun had burned. It had watched species crawl from the mud of 1,000 worlds, reach for the stars, and either join the great family of civilization or fade into dust. The Galactic Concord had stood for 10,000 years, a union of more than 1,000 species living together in what they called eternal peace. Admiral Tisisra, of the Velkari Dominion, had served the Concord for 300 years. Her scales had turned from bright green to a dignified silver. Her 4 eyes had watched countless ships pass through the great trade routes. She had never seen war. No one alive had seen war. War was something from the ancient texts, a madness that primitive species suffered before they grew wise enough to abandon it. She stood on the command deck of her flagship, the Gentle Dawn, and watched the stars through the great viewing window. The ship was beautiful, its hull curved like a flower petal, painted in the soft blues and whites that the Velkari loved. It had no weapons. Why would it need weapons? The last war in the galaxy had ended 8,000 years ago. "Admiral," her sensor officer called out. His voice was calm. "Nothing ever happened that required excitement. We are detecting an object emerging from the Sol quarantine zone." Tisisra turned one of her eyes toward the officer while keeping the others on the window. "Sol? The primitive world?" "Yes, Admiral. Earth, as the locals call it." Tisisra made a sound that was the Velkari equivalent of a dismissive laugh. Earth. She remembered learning about it as a youngling. A small blue world filled with violent apes who spent their entire existence killing each other. The Concord had discovered them 500 years ago, observed them for a decade, and then sealed off their entire system. The apes were too dangerous to contact, too primitive to join civilization. They would either destroy themselves or evolve past their violent nature. Either way, the galaxy had decided to wait. "It is probably an asteroid," Tisisra said, "or perhaps some debris from their primitive space exploration." "It is quite large, Admiral. 3 kilometers in length." That made Tisisra pause. 3 kilometers was not small, but humans had been building space stations when the Concord found them. Perhaps they had built something larger. Perhaps it had drifted out of their system by accident. "Continue monitoring," she ordered. "Alert me if anything changes." She returned to her thoughts. In 2 days, she would attend the Grand Assembly on Concord Station. Representatives from every species would gather to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges. It was the same meeting they had every cycle. Nothing ever changed. Nothing needed to change. The galaxy was at peace. The sensor officer's voice cut through her thoughts again. "Admiral, the object has changed course." Tisisra's scales rippled with the first hint of unease. "Changed course?" "Yes. It was traveling in a straight line. Now it has turned. It is heading toward Concord Station." "That is not possible. Asteroids do not change course." "No, Admiral, they do not." Tisisra walked to the sensor station and looked at the display. The object was indeed moving with purpose. It was accelerating. Its path would bring it directly to the heart of Concord space. She felt something she had not felt in centuries. She felt afraid. "Hail them," she ordered. The communication officer worked his console. Moments later, a burst of static filled the command deck. Then a voice spoke. It was a strange voice, harsh and strong, speaking in a language the translation systems had to work to understand. "This is the UES Perseverance, representing the United Earth Coalition. We come seeking diplomatic contact with the galactic community. Please respond." Tisisra's heart stopped. Both of them, at the same time. Earth, the primitive world, the violent apes. They had not destroyed themselves. They had built ships. They had broken quarantine. They were coming. "Respond," she whispered. Tell them we receive their message. Tell them to hold position while we consult with Concord leadership." The message was sent. The response came quickly. "Understood. The Perseverance will hold position at the edge of your system. We mean no harm. We only wish to talk. Please advise on diplomatic protocols." Tisisra wanted to believe them. She wanted to believe that 500 years had changed the humans, that they had grown past their violent nature. But something in that voice, something hard and ready, told her that the apes had not forgotten what they were. She sent an emergency message to Concord Station. The response came within the hour. Every member of the Concord leadership was terrified. No one knew what to do. They had planned for everything except this. They had planned for peace forever. They had not planned for Earth. The decision was made to allow the human ship to approach. To do otherwise might be seen as hostile. And despite their fear, the Concorde did not know how to be hostile. They had forgotten how. Tisra was ordered to escort the human vessel. She gathered a fleet of 20 ships, the largest gathering of Concorde vessels in 1,000 years. They were all beautiful. They were all unarmed. They flew out to meet the humans like flowers drifting toward a storm. The Perseverance appeared on their screens, and Tisra understood true fear. It was not beautiful. It was not elegant. It was a thing of nightmares. 3 kilometers of black metal, angular and brutal, covered in armor plating thick enough to stop asteroids. Along its hull were weapons. Tisra had only seen such things in ancient museums. Kinetic batteries capable of hurling metal at speeds that could crack planets. Missile pods loaded with warheads. Energy arrays that glowed with barely contained power. The ship looked like it had been built by a species that expected the universe to try to kill them, because it had been. By the first light, her sensor officer whispered, "What is that?" "That," Tisra said slowly, "is what happens when you leave a species alone with their fear." The human ship matched speed with her fleet. It was larger than all 20 of her vessels combined. A single human ship could destroy everything she had. She knew this with absolute certainty, and she knew that the humans knew it too. A communication request came through. Tisra accepted it. A human face appeared on her screen. It was a female. Tisra thought. Humans were difficult to tell apart. The female had dark hair cut short and eyes that held no warmth. She wore a uniform of dark gray with symbols Tisra did not recognize. "Admiral Tisra," the human said. "I am Captain Sarah Morrison of the Perseverance. Thank you for the escort. We appreciate the welcome." Tisra tried to keep her voice steady. "Captain Morrison, you must understand that your arrival has caused great concern. Your system was quarantined. You were not supposed to leave." The human's expression did not change. "We found the quarantine buoys 60 years ago. We destroyed them. We spent the next 6 decades preparing for whatever came to punish us for breaking free." "Punish you? We would never." "You sealed us away," Morrison said. "You looked at our world, saw what we were, and decided we were too dangerous to exist alongside you. You left us alone with our wars and our fears. You expected us to die." Her voice was flat, but something burned behind her eyes. "We did not die. We grew. We unified. We built. And now we are here." Tisra did not know what to say. Everything the human said was true. The Concorde had abandoned Earth. They had assumed the violent apes would destroy themselves. It had seemed like the merciful choice at the time. "We meant no harm," Tisra said weakly. "I believe you," Morrison replied. "But intention does not change impact." For 500 years, humanity looked up at the stars and saw threat. We saw a galaxy that had rejected us, that might come to finish what our own wars had started. So we prepared. We built ships, we built weapons, we trained our children and their children to fight a war that we prayed would never come. She paused. On the screen behind her, Tisra could see the bridge of the human ship. It was nothing like her own command deck. There were no soft colors, no elegant curves. Everything was metal and function. Screens showed tactical data. Officers moved with purpose. This was not a ship of exploration or trade. This was a ship of war. "We are not here to conquer," Morrison continued. "We are not here for revenge. We are here because we finally grew strong enough to face whatever waited in the dark. And we would rather have friends than enemies." Tisra felt her scales shift color as emotions she could not name moved through her. Fear, shame, something that might have been respect. These creatures had been abandoned, left to their fate, and they had survived. They had thrived. They had become something terrible and magnificent. "We will escort you to Concorde Station," Tisra said. "Our leaders will speak with your representatives. But I must warn you, Captain. Your ship, your weapons, they will frighten many." Morrison almost smiled. It was not a warm expression. "Good." The journey to Concorde Station took 3 days. Word spread ahead of them. By the time they arrived, every species in the Concorde knew that Earth had returned. Some wanted to run, some wanted to fight. Most just wanted to understand how this had happened. Concorde Station was the heart of galactic civilization. It hung in space like a jewel, a structure of crystal and light that had taken 1,000 years to build. Ships from every species docked at its ports. Millions lived within its walls. It was proof that the galaxy could live in peace. The Perseverance approached, and the station fell silent. Thisra watched from her ship as the human vessel moved into docking position. It dwarfed the station's military ports. It had to be guided to a cargo dock, the only space large enough to hold it. Even then, its weapons remained powered, its shields remained active. The humans trusted nothing. A delegation was formed to meet the human representatives. Thisra was ordered to be part of it, along with leaders from a dozen other species. They gathered in the station's grand hall, a chamber of white marble and gentle light, where peace treaties had been signed for millennia. The humans arrived in a shuttle that landed with more force than necessary. The doors opened, and armed soldiers stepped out first. They wore armor that covered them from head to toe, black and angular like their ship. They carried weapons openly, real weapons, the kind that could kill. Behind them came the diplomats. The woman who led them was old by human standards, her hair gray and her face lined with years, but she walked with strength, and her eyes missed nothing. She wore a simple uniform with many symbols of rank. "I am Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin," she said. Her voice was calm but carried across the silent hall. "I speak for the United Earth Coalition. We come in peace, but we will not pretend to be something we are not." The Velkari High Speaker, leader of the Concord, stepped forward. He was ancient even by Velkari standards, his scales so pale they were almost white. He had guided the Concord for 1,000 years. He had never faced anything like this. "Ambassador Chen," he said, "you must understand our concern. Your species was quarantined for good reason. Your history is one of violence and destruction, and now you arrive with weapons of a kind we banned long ago. How can we trust that you come in peace?" Chen looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked around the hall, at the frightened faces of 1,000 alien species, at the beautiful architecture that had never known war. "You ask how you can trust us," she said. "Let me ask you something first. When was the last time any of you fought for anything?" Silence answered her. "I thought so." Chen walked slowly through the hall, her boots echoing on the marble floor. "You banned weapons. You ended war. You created a paradise where no one ever had to be afraid, and it made you weak." The High Speaker's scales flushed with anger. "We are not weak. We are civilized. You are prey," Chen said simply. "Every species in this room, every world in your Concord, survives only because nothing has come to challenge you. You have forgotten what it means to fight. You have forgotten what it means to survive. And you have not? We cannot forget." Chen stopped and turned to face the assembly. "Humanity has spent its entire existence fighting the world that birthed us, fighting each other, fighting our own nature. We have done terrible things. We have nearly destroyed ourselves more times than I can count, but we have never stopped fighting. We have never become prey." She raised her hand, and one of her soldiers activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above them. Earth, cities in flames, mushroom clouds rising over wastelands, mass graves, war. "This is what we are," Chen said. "This is what you feared. And you were right to fear it. But look closer." The images changed. Survivors emerging from bunkers, cities being rebuilt, hands reaching across old battle lines, children playing in parks where bombs had once fallen. Unity born from ashes. "We did not escape our nature," Chen continued. "We mastered it. We took our violence, and our fear, and our rage, and we forged them into strength. We built ships that can kill worlds, not because we want to use them, but because we know what happens to those who cannot defend themselves." The High Speaker shook his head. "This is madness. The galaxy is at peace. There is nothing to defend against." Chen smiled, and it was the saddest expression Thisra had ever seen. "You really believe that, don't you?" the human said. "You really think that because you have known peace, peace will last forever? You think that because you have no enemies exist?" "There are no enemies," the High Speaker insisted. "The Concord has ensured." Then explained the shroud. The word fell into the hall like a stone into still water. Ripples of fear spread through the assembly. Some species made sounds of distress. Others looked away. The High Speaker's scales went very, very pale. "How do you know about that?" he whispered. We have been watching you for decades, Chen said. We intercepted your communications. We studied your history. We learned everything we could about the galaxy we were about to enter. And we found the reports you tried to hide. She gestured, and the holographic display changed again. It showed a map of the galaxy. Most of it glowed with light, marking the worlds of the Concord. But at one edge, there was darkness, a vast region where no stars shone. The Shroud. Ships vanish when they enter that region, Chen said. Signals die. Colonies at the edge have gone silent. You have known about this for centuries, and you have done nothing. There is nothing to be done, the High Speaker said. His voice was weak now. The Shroud has always been there. It is a natural phenomenon, a region of space where conditions make travel impossible. Then why is it growing? More silence. The fear in the hall had turned to something deeper, something closer to despair. We ran the numbers, Chen continued. The Shroud expands by approximately 1 light-year every decade. At current rates, it will reach the core worlds of the Concord within 2,000 years. But if that expansion accelerates, if whatever lives in that darkness decides to come out, she let the sentence hang. You are not ready, she said finally. You have forgotten how to be ready. Your ships are beautiful and useless. Your people are peaceful and helpless. When the darkness comes, and it will come, you will not be able to stop it. The High Speaker drew himself up, trying to recover his dignity. And you think you can? Chen looked at the old alien with something that might have been pity. I think we are the only ones who might have a chance. Not because we are better than you, not because we are smarter or stronger or more worthy, but because we remember what you have forgotten. We remember that the universe is not kind. We remember that survival must be earned. We remember how to be afraid. She turned and walked back toward her soldiers. We came here to offer friendship, she said over her shoulder. To join your Concord if you will have us. To share what we know and learn what you can teach. But we will not pretend that everything is fine. We will not smile and talk about peace while darkness gathers at the edge of your worlds. And we will not disarm. She stopped at the shuttle and looked back one final time. The choice is yours. Accept us as we are, or reject us and face what is coming alone. But know this. Humanity has spent 500 years preparing for war. We built our ships for battles that might never come. We trained our children to fight enemies they might never face. We did this because we knew, deep in our bones, that the universe does not care about peace or civilization or hope. Her eyes swept across the assembly. The universe only cares about who survives. She stepped into the shuttle. The soldiers followed. The doors closed, and the galaxy was left to wrestle with a truth it had spent 10,000 years trying to forget. War was not just a memory. War was coming, and the only species ready to face it were the violent apes that everyone had left for dead. Thisisra stood in the silent hall, watching the human shuttle rise and return to its nightmare of a ship. She thought about the quarantine. She thought about the Shroud. She thought about all the years her people had spent believing they were safe, and for the first time in her 300 years of life, she wondered if being afraid might be the only thing that could save them. The Grand Hall remained silent for a long time after the humans left. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. The High Speaker stood frozen at the center of the chamber, his ancient scales shifting through colors that showed his inner turmoil. Around him, representatives of 1,000 species waited for guidance that he could not give. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin had broken something in that room. She had broken the comfortable lie that the galaxy had told itself for 10,000 years. She had reminded them that peace was not a guarantee. It was a gift that could be taken away. Thisera was the first to speak. High Speaker, what do we do? The old Velkari turned to look at her. For the first time in the centuries she had known him, he looked lost. I do not know, he admitted. I have led the Concord through trade disputes and cultural misunderstandings. I have never led it through fear. A voice rose from the assembly. It belonged to a Shoreth, one of the crystalline beings from the inner systems. Their bodies were made of living mineral, and their voices rang like bells. We should destroy them, destroy their ship before they can threaten us. Other voices joined in. Some agreed with the Shoreth. Others argued for caution. The hall filled with noise for the first time in memory. It sounded like panic. Enough. The High Speaker raised his hands, and the chamber fell quiet. We will not attack anyone. That is not who we are. That is not what the Concord stands for. Then what do we stand for? The question came from a small creature near the back of the hall, a Melix, one of the youngest species to join the Concord. The humans say we are weak. They say something is coming. Are they wrong? The high speaker hesitated. That hesitation said more than any words could. Thisra stepped forward. I escorted their ship here. I spoke with their captain. Whatever else the humans are, they are not liars. They believe what they say. They believe something waits in the shroud. And they have spent centuries preparing for it. Preparing how? Someone asked. By becoming exactly what we feared. By turning themselves into weapons. Thisra's voice was heavy. We abandoned them because we thought they were too violent to join us. Now they return, more violent than ever, and they tell us that violence may be the only thing that can save us. The Shorath who had spoken before made a sound of disgust. This is madness. There is nothing in the shroud. It is empty space, dead stars, natural phenomena. The humans are trying to frighten us so they can take control. Then why did we classify the reports? A new voice asked. Everyone turned. The speaker was a small being called a Reth, one of the administrative species that kept the Concord's records. They were not usually permitted to speak in the Grand Hall, but no one stopped them now. I have worked in the archives for 200 years, the Reth continued. I have seen the files about the shroud. I have seen the reports marked secret, colony worlds going silent, ships vanishing, signals that stop mid-transmission. These reports go back centuries, and every one of them was buried. The high speaker's scales went pale again. Those reports were classified to prevent panic. There was no evidence of threat, only anomalies. Anomalies that you hid from us, someone said bitterly. The hall erupted again. This time, the noise was angry. Species that had trusted the Dominion for millennia now looked at their leaders with suspicion. The foundation of Concord unity cracked with every accusation. Thisra watched the chaos and understood something important. The humans had not started this. They had simply exposed what was already broken. The Concord had built its peace on secrets and comfortable lies. Now the truth was tearing it apart. She slipped away from the assembly and made her way to the docking level. She needed to speak with the humans again. She needed to understand what they wanted, what they planned, and whether there was any hope of keeping the galaxy from destroying itself. The human ship loomed over the docking bay like a predator among prey. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Thisra could see the scars on its hull, places where armor had been damaged and repaired. This ship had been in combat, not simulation, real fighting. She wondered what the humans had found to fight in their lonely system. A human guard stopped her at the edge of the security perimeter. He was young by their standards, his face smooth and his eyes wary. The weapon he carried looked like it could cut through her ship's hull. I am Admiral Thisra, she said. I wish to speak with Ambassador Chen. The guard spoke into a device on his wrist. A moment later, he nodded and stepped aside. The ambassador will see you. Follow the escort. 2 more soldiers led her through the ship's corridors. They were narrow and functional, nothing like the wide, decorated passages of Concord vessels. Everything here served a purpose. There was no art, no beauty, no comfort, just metal and purpose and the constant hum of weapons on standby. They brought her to a room that served as the ambassador's quarters. It was small by Thisra standards, barely large enough for a desk and a few chairs. Chen Wei-Lin sat behind the desk, reading something on a display. She looked up as Thisra entered. Admiral, I was expecting someone from the Concord. I thought they would send a diplomat. The diplomats are arguing about what to do with you, Thisra said. Some want to destroy your ship. Others want to pretend you never came. I wanted to talk. Chen smiled slightly. It was a tired expression, the smile of someone who had carried heavy burdens for a long time. Talking is good. Please, sit. Thisra lowered herself into one of the chairs. It was designed for humans and did not fit her body well, but she managed. You knew this would happen. You knew your arrival would cause chaos. We hoped to avoid it, Chen admitted. We planned to introduce ourselves slowly, to build trust over time. But when we learned how much the Concord was hiding, we changed our plans. How did you learn? You said you intercepted communications. We have been listening for a long time. Chen turned her display toward Thisra. It showed a timeline, centuries of intercepted signals, analyzed and cataloged. When we broke through the quarantine, we did not rush to make contact. We spent decades watching, learning, preparing. We knew you feared us. We needed to understand what we were dealing with. Tisra felt a chill. The humans had been watching all along, studying, planning, while the conquered had assumed the violent apes were destroying themselves. The violent apes had been learning everything about the galaxy that had abandoned them. You could have attacked us, Tisra said slowly. You have weapons. We have none. You could have conquered the entire Concord. We could have, Chen agreed. We discussed it. Some of our leaders wanted exactly that. They argued that the galaxy had left us to die, and we owed it nothing. What stopped them? Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her desk and pulled out a small object. It was a photograph, old and worn. It showed a group of humans standing together in front of a ruined building. They were smiling. My great-grandmother took this picture, Chen said. It was right after the Third Unification War, the war that finally brought humanity together. Behind them, you can see what is left of a city. Millions died in that war, but they are smiling because they believed they had built something better. They believed that if humans could learn to stop fighting each other, we could become something greater. She set the photograph on the desk between them. I carry this to remind me why we fight. Not to conquer, not to destroy. We fight so that others can smile like that, so that children can grow up without fear. When we looked at the Concord, we saw a galaxy that had already achieved what my ancestors dreamed of. A galaxy at peace. We could not bring ourselves to destroy that, even if we had the power to do so. Tisra looked at the photograph. The human faces were strange to her, their expressions hard to read. But she recognized something in their eyes. Hope. The same hope she had felt as a young officer, when she had believed the Concord would last forever. But you did not come just to join us, Tisra said. You came to warn us. Yes. Chen took back the photograph and held it carefully. Because peace without strength is just waiting to be destroyed. Your Concord has forgotten this. You have built paradise on a foundation of sand. When the storm comes, it will wash everything away. The shroud. The shroud. Chen nodded. We have studied it as much as we could from a distance. We have analyzed every piece of data the Concord has collected and classified. We have run simulations and projections, and we believe, with high confidence, that something intelligent lives in that darkness. Something old, something patient, something that is slowly waking up. Tisra wanted to argue. She wanted to say that the shroud was just dead space, natural phenomena, nothing to fear. But the words died in her throat. She had read the classified reports herself, years ago. She had seen the patterns, ships that vanished, colonies that went silent, signals that ended in screams. What do you want from us? She asked instead. We want to help you survive, Chen said simply. We want to share our technology, our weapons, our knowledge of war. We want to train your people to fight. And when the darkness comes, we want to stand beside you. In exchange for what? Nothing. Chen's voice was firm. We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We do not want to rule you. We want allies. We want a galaxy that can defend itself. Because whatever is in the shroud, humanity cannot face it alone. Tisra studied the human for a long time. She searched for deception, for hidden motives, for the violence that everyone said defined humanity. She found only weariness and determination and something that looked very much like fear. You are afraid, Tisra said with surprise. Terrified, Chen admitted. We have spent 5 centuries preparing for the worst. We have built weapons that can destroy planets. We have trained soldiers who will fight to the last breath. And in my heart, I do not know if it will be enough. The shroud is vast. Whatever lives there has been waiting for a very long time. We are strong, Admiral. But we may not be strong enough. She leaned forward, and her eyes held Tisra with fierce intensity. That is why we need you. Not because you are warriors. You are not, and pretending otherwise would be foolish. We need you because the galaxy needs to stand together. We need your scientists, your engineers, your resources. We need 1,000 species working toward one goal. We need to become something greater than we are alone. Tisra felt the weight of the moment. History was changing around her. The galaxy she had known, the peaceful and eternal Concord, was already dead. It had died the moment the humans arrived. Now something new was being born, something forged in fear and hope and the desperate need to survive. The Concord will resist, Tisra said. The High Speaker, the Dominion, they will not accept this. They have spent too long believing in peace. Then we will show them why peace alone is not enough. Chen stood and walked to a wall panel. She pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared. It showed the Perseverance, but not alone. Beside it floated dozens of other ships, all bearing the angular, brutal design of human construction. This is the First Fleet, Chen said. 12 battleships, 40 cruisers, 100 support vessels. We brought them through the quarantine zone 2 weeks ago. They are waiting in deep space, hidden from your sensors. Tisara's hearts raced. You brought a fleet? We brought enough force to ensure we would be heard. Not to attack, never to attack, unless we are attacked first. But we knew the Concord would not listen to a single ship. We knew we needed to show our strength before we could offer our friendship. The display changed, showing technical specifications. Ships, weapons, shields, training programs, manufacturing techniques, everything humanity had learned about war in their 5 centuries of isolation. This is what we offer, Chen said. Not just weapons, knowledge. The understanding that war is not just about who has the biggest guns. It is about will, about sacrifice, about knowing what you are fighting for and being willing to die for it. She turned back to Thisra. I know this is a lot to take in. I know you have been taught to fear us, and perhaps you should. We are everything the Concord warned you about. We are violent, we are dangerous, we will never be tamed, but we are also the only species in this galaxy that knows how to face the darkness, and right now, that is what the galaxy needs. Thisra rose from her chair. Her legs felt unsteady. Her mind was full of thoughts she did not know how to process. But one thing was clear. The humans had not come to destroy the Concord. They had come to save it. The question was whether the Concord would let them. I will speak to the High Speaker, Thisra said. I will tell him what you have told me. I cannot promise he will listen. That is all I ask. Chen extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement. Whatever happens, Admiral, remember this. We did not come here to conquer. We came here because we believe the galaxy is worth saving, even if it does not believe in us. Thisra took the offered hand. The human's grip was strong and warm. I will remember, she said. She left the ship and walked back through the station in a daze. The Grand Hall was still in chaos when she returned. Species were shouting at each other. Ancient alliances fraying. Fear turning to anger, turning to despair. The High Speaker stood at the center, looking older than ever. Thisra pushed through the crowd until she reached him. High Speaker, she said. I have spoken with the humans. You need to hear what they have to say. The old Velkari looked at her with exhausted eyes. And what is that, Admiral? They want to help us. They want to teach us to fight. They want to stand beside us when the darkness comes. The darkness, the High Speaker repeated. He sounded like he did not believe his own words anymore. You speak as if it is real, as if something truly waits in the shroud. You know it does, Thisra said quietly. You have always known. You just did not want to believe. The High Speaker was silent for a long moment. Around them, the chaos continued, but it seemed distant now, just noise without meaning. If I accept the humans' help, he said finally, the Concord as we know it will end. We will become something different, something harder, something that knows war. Yes, Thisra agreed, but we will survive. The High Speaker closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they held a resignation that Thisra had never seen before. Then perhaps it is time to change. He raised his hands, and slowly, the hall fell silent. 1,000 species turned to look at their leader, waiting for the words that would shape their future. Bring the humans back, the High Speaker said. His voice was heavy but steady. We will hear their terms. We will consider their offer. And we will decide, together, what kind of galaxy we want to be. Thisra felt something shift in the room. Fear remained, but now it was mixed with something else. Curiosity. Hope. The first fragile seeds of change. The humans had come bearing weapons and warnings. They had shattered the comfortable lies the Concord had told itself for millennia. And now, whether the galaxy liked it or not, everything was about to change. The darkness waited at the edge of the stars. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the light was preparing to fight back. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Ambassador Chen and her team met with representatives from every major species in the Concord. They answered questions. They showed evidence. They presented their offer in plain terms that left no room for misunderstanding. By the end, most of the assembly had begun to accept the truth that the humans brought, but acceptance was not universal. The Velkari Dominion had ruled the Concord for millennia. They had built their power on the promise of eternal peace. Admitting that peace was a lie would destroy everything they had built. So they fought back. On the fourth day, the High Speaker called an emergency session of the Concord Council. He stood before the assembly with his scales arranged in the formal pattern of authority. His voice was calm and measured. "The human representatives have presented their evidence," he said. "They claim that a threat exists in the Shroud. They claim that the Concord has hidden this threat from its members. I am here to tell you that these claims are exaggerated." Chen was watching from the gallery. Her expression did not change, but Tisisra saw her hands tighten on the railing. "It is true that anomalies have been recorded in the Shroud region," the High Speaker continued. "Ships have been lost. Signals have gone silent. But there is no evidence of hostile intent. The Shroud is a natural phenomenon. Dangerous, but not malevolent. The humans are using fear to manipulate us." Voices rose in agreement. Many in the assembly wanted to believe the High Speaker. They wanted the old certainties back. They wanted to return to the comfortable lies. "The humans offer weapons," the High Speaker said. "They offer war. They ask us to abandon 10,000 years of peace and become like them. Violent, fearful, armed. I say this is madness. The Concord has survived this long by rejecting violence. We will not change now." Chen stepped forward. A hush fell over the chamber as the human ambassador walked to the speaker's platform. The guards moved to stop her, but the High Speaker waved them back. He wanted to face her in front of the assembly. He wanted to show that he was not afraid. "High Speaker," Chen said. Her voice was quiet but carried through the hall. "I understand why you fight this. You have built something beautiful, something worth protecting. But you cannot protect it by denying the truth." "And what truth is that?" Chen turned to face the assembly. "The truth is in your own archives. The reports you classified. The data you buried. I asked permission to access those files. I was denied, so we decided to share them ourselves." She gestured, and the holographic displays throughout the chamber activated. They showed documents, thousands of them. Reports from colony worlds at the edge of Concord space. Distress signals that ended mid-sentence. Sensor readings that showed ships simply vanishing. Data that went back centuries. All of it marked classified by Dominion authority. "These are your own records," Chen said. "Your own scientists. Your own officers. They saw the same patterns we did. They drew the same conclusions. And they were silenced." The chamber erupted. Species that had trusted the Dominion for millennia stared at the evidence with growing horror. The High Speaker's scales flickered through colors of distress. "This is a violation," he shouted. "You had no right to access classified files." "We did not access your files," Chen replied calmly. "We compiled them from signals we intercepted over the decades. Every report, every distress call, every piece of data your people sent, we caught and recorded. We have better signal technology than you might think." She let that sink in before continuing. "Your people knew. Your scientists knew. Your military officers knew. The threat in the Shroud is real. It has been real for centuries, and your government chose to hide it rather than prepare for it." A Shoreth representative stood up. His crystalline body rang with anger. "Why would they hide such a thing? What purpose could it serve?" Chen looked at the High Speaker. "Ask him." Every eye in the chamber turned to the old Velkari. His scales had gone pale, nearly white. His four eyes looked everywhere except at the assembly. "It was for your protection," he said finally. His voice was barely a whisper. "We feared what would happen if the truth came out. War, panic, the collapse of everything we had built. We thought, we hoped, that the threat would remain contained, that the Shroud would stay at the edge of the galaxy forever. And if it did not?" Chen pressed. "What was your plan if the darkness reached the core worlds?" Silence. The High Speaker had no answer. A young Melix representative pushed to the front of the crowd. "You knew. You knew there was a threat, and you did nothing. You left us defenseless. We maintained peace," the High Speaker insisted. "We preserved stability. These were not small achievements. They were lies." The Melix's voice cracked with emotion. "My species joined the Concord 300 years ago. We gave up our weapons. We trusted you to protect us. And all this time, you knew something was out there. Something that could destroy us all. Other voices joined in. The anger spread through the chamber like fire. Species that had been allies for millennia now looked at the Dominion with betrayal in their eyes. The foundations of the Concord crumbled with every accusation. The High Speaker tried to regain control. The humans are manipulating you. They want us divided. They want, what we want, Chen interrupted, is a galaxy that can survive. We have no interest in your political structure or your ancient grudges. We care about one thing. When the darkness comes, will anyone be left to fight it? She stepped forward until she was face to face with the High Speaker. You have led these people for 1,000 years. You have done much good. But your time of peaceful rule is over. The galaxy needs warriors now. It needs strength. It needs the truth. No matter how frightening that truth may be. The High Speaker stared at her. In that moment, Thisara saw something break in his eyes. The certainty that had sustained him for millennia finally crumbled. He was an old man who had believed in something beautiful, and that belief had been wrong. What would you have me do? He asked. It was not a challenge. It was a plea. Step aside, Chen said gently. Let new leadership emerge. Let the Concord decide for itself what kind of future it wants. We will not force our ways upon you, but we will offer our help to anyone willing to accept it. The High Speaker looked around the chamber. He saw the anger, the fear, the desperate hunger for something different. He understood that his authority was already gone. The Concord had changed the moment the humans arrived. He had simply refused to see it. Slowly, with the weight of centuries pressing down on him, the High Speaker removed the badge of office from his chest. He placed it on the Speaker's platform. I release my authority, he said. Let the Concord choose its own path. He walked out of the chamber without looking back. The assembly watched him go in stunned silence. For 10,000 years, the Dominion had ruled. Now, in the space of a few heartbeats, that rule had ended. Chen did not celebrate. She did not gloat. She simply waited for the chaos to subside before speaking again. The Concord stands at a crossroads. You can cling to the old ways and hope that the darkness never comes. Or you can accept help from a species you have feared for centuries. The choice must be yours. We will not make it for you. She turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, she paused. We will be on our ship. When you have decided, send word. But do not take too long. Time is shorter than you think. The assembly erupted into chaos as soon as she left. Species formed factions. Arguments broke out. Some demanded immediate alliance with the humans. Others wanted to expel them from conquered space. Still others called for war, though they had no weapons to fight with. Thisisra watched it all with a heavy heart. This was not how she had imagined the future. She had served the Concord her entire life, believing in its mission of peace. Now that mission lay in ruins, and she did not know what would rise from the ashes. A hand touched her shoulder. She turned to find the young Melek's representative looking at her. Admiral, the Melek said. Some of us are meeting privately. We want to discuss accepting the humans' offer. We want you to join us. Why me? Because you have spoken with them. Because you escorted their ship. Because you are the closest thing we have to someone who understands them. Thisisra considered the request. She was a military officer, not a politician. She was not supposed to involve herself in such matters. But the old rules no longer seemed to apply. The galaxy was changing, and she had to change with it. Very well, she said. Lead the way. The meeting took place in a small room far from the main chamber. 20 representatives had gathered, from species scattered across the Concord. They were young, most of them. Species that had joined the Concord recently, and had not forgotten how to question authority. They talked through the night. They debated the risks and the benefits. They argued about trust and fear and survival. By morning, they had reached a consensus. We will accept the humans' offer, the Melek said. Not for the entire Concord. We cannot speak for everyone. But our species, our worlds, we will learn what the humans have to teach. We will prepare for what is coming. The Dominion will oppose you, Thisra warned. What remains of their power will fight to stop this. Then let them fight, a Shorith representative said. The crystalline being's voice rang with determination. We have spent too long being told what to fear and what to ignore. It is time we decided for ourselves. Thisisra carried their message to the Perseverance. Chen received it with a nod. It is a start, she said. Not everyone, but enough. We will work with whoever is willing. Over the following weeks, the galaxy transformed. The Concord fractured into factions. Some species remained loyal to the old ways, clinging to peace even as evidence of the threat mounted. Others joined the coalition forming around Earth, and some simply fled, abandoning their worlds and heading for the far edges of the galaxy, hoping to outrun whatever was coming. The humans worked tirelessly. Engineers from the Perseverance helped rebuild shipyards, teaching alien workers how to construct vessels designed for war. Military advisors trained officers who had never held weapons. Scientists shared technology that the Concord had abandoned millennia ago. It was not easy. The cultural differences were vast. Species that had evolved for peace struggled to understand concepts like violence and sacrifice. Many failed. Many quit. But enough remained, driven by fear of the darkness and hope for survival. Tisra became a bridge between the humans and the Concord species. Her military background helped her understand what the humans were teaching. Her Valkyrie heritage helped her translate those concepts into terms that other species could grasp. She worked herself to exhaustion, and when she collapsed, she got up and worked some more. One night, 6 months after the humans had arrived, Chen found her sitting alone in an observation lounge. The Admiral was staring out at the stars, her scales dull with fatigue. "You should rest," Chen said, sitting down beside her. "Rest can wait. There is too much to do. There will always be too much to do. That is the nature of preparation for war. The enemy does not wait for you to be ready." Tisra turned to look at the human. "How did your species survive it? The constant fear, the endless preparation. How do you live like this?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "We found purpose in it. Humanity has always needed something to struggle against. When we ran out of enemies on Earth, we turned on ourselves. When we finally united, we needed a new challenge. The stars gave us that. And now? Now we have something to protect, not just ourselves but everyone. A whole galaxy of species that forgot how to fight." Chen smiled slightly. "In a strange way, the Concord gave us something we had been missing for centuries. A cause worth dying for." Tisra shook her head. "I do not understand you. Your species terrifies me. But I am also grateful that you came." "We terrify ourselves sometimes," Chen admitted. "The violence in our nature, the capacity for destruction, it is always there. We have learned to channel it, to direct it toward worthy goals. But we never forget what we are capable of. That awareness keeps us humble." She stood and looked out at the stars. "The shroud is still growing. Our sensors show increased activity at its edges. Whatever is waking up in there, it will not wait much longer. We have perhaps a year, maybe 2, before it reaches the outer colonies. Will we be ready?" "No." Chen's voice was flat. "We will not be ready. Not fully. But we will be more ready than we are now. And that might be enough." She turned back to Tisra. "Get some rest, Admiral. Tomorrow we begin training your people to fly the new battleships. It will not be easy. Your species has never operated vessels designed for combat. Many will struggle, some will fail, but every pilot we train is one more weapon against the darkness." Tisra rose to her feet. Her body ached, but something in her spirit felt lighter. "Thank you, Ambassador, for everything. Thank me when we survive." Chen walked away, leaving Tisra alone with the stars. The Admiral looked out at the darkness between the points of light. Somewhere out there, something ancient and terrible was stirring. It had waited for millennia. It was almost done waiting. But this time, when it came, it would not find prey waiting helplessly to be devoured. It would find a galaxy that had remembered how to fight, a galaxy that had been taught by the most violent species in existence. Earth's children had come bearing gifts of war, and the galaxy, whether it liked it or not, was learning to accept them. The night passed. The stars turned, and in shipyards across 1,000 worlds, the first new weapons in 10,000 years began to take shape. The age of peace was over. The age of preparation had begun. The enemy came 6 months sooner than expected. Tisra was on the bridge of her new ship, the Rising Storm, when the alerts began. The vessel was one of the first hybrid designs, built with Valkyrie elegance and human brutality combined. It had shields and weapons and armor plating that would have horrified her younger self. Now she was grateful for every layer of protection. "Admiral," her sensor officer called out. Massive energy readings from the shroud. Something is coming through. Show me. The main display shifted to show the edge of Concord space. The shroud was there. That vast darkness that had haunted the galaxy for so long. But now the darkness was moving. Ships poured from its depths. More ships than Thisisra had ever seen. They were strange shapes, twisted and wrong, like living things that had been turned into metal, or metal things that had been given life. What are they? Someone whispered. No one had an answer. The Concord had speculated about what lived in the shroud for centuries. Now they were about to find out. The ships did not slow down. They did not broadcast signals or demands. They simply moved toward the nearest colony world with terrible purpose. The Kirith system, home to 4 billion souls. All ships, form defensive formation. Thisra ordered. Protect the evacuation transports. Buy time for the civilians to escape. Her fleet moved to intercept. It was a mixed force, 30 ships from a dozen species. Some were old Concord vessels hastily retrofitted with weapons. Others were new construction, built in the frantic months since the humans arrived. None of them were ready for what they faced. The enemy numbered in the thousands. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human First Fleet. They are 2 days out at maximum speed. 2 days. Thisisra looked at the sensor readings. The enemy would reach the colony in hours. 2 days might as well be 2 centuries. Tell them to hurry. We will hold as long as we can. The first exchange of fire came 20 minutes later. Thisisra watched her ships unleash the weapons they had been trained to use. Energy beams lanced across space. Missiles streaked toward enemy hulls. Kinetic rounds slammed into twisted metal. The enemy kept coming. Our weapons are having minimal effect, her weapons officer reported. His voice was steady, but his scales showed his fear. They are adapting, reorganizing their hull structure to deflect our fire, switch to different frequencies, vary the attack patterns. They tried. For every adaptation they made, the enemy made 3 more. These were not mindless drones. They were something far worse. Something that learned. The first Concord ship died within the hour. The Gentle Song, a Melix cruiser, was swarmed by smaller enemy craft. They latched onto its hull and began cutting through. The crew fought back with everything they had, but their training was too new. Their instincts too peaceful. The ship went silent 10 minutes later. More ships followed. The Crystal Voice, the New Dawn, the Hope of Worlds. Beautiful names for beautiful vessels. Now nothing but debris drifting in the void. Admiral, we cannot hold this position. We need to retreat. Thisera knew the officer was right. But retreating meant abandoning the colony. Abandoning 4 billion lives. Negative. We stay. Admiral, we stay. Her voice left no room for argument. Every minute we hold is a minute more for evacuation. Every ship we destroy is one less threat to other worlds. We knew this day would come. We knew it would cost us. Now we pay the price. The battle continued. Hours blurred together. Thisisra watched her fleet die piece by piece. Ships she had commanded, officers she had trained, friends she had made during the long months of preparation. All of them gone. By the time the sun set on the colony world below, only 7 Concord ships remained. The evacuation transports had escaped, carrying perhaps half the population. The rest had not made it to the ships in time. 2 billion souls, trapped on a world that was about to fall. Admiral, the enemy is moving toward the planet. We cannot stop them. Thisra closed her eyes. She had failed. Despite everything the humans had taught them, despite all the weapons and training, she had failed. The darkness had come, and she had not been strong enough to hold it back. All ships, prepare to cover the remaining transports. We will. Admiral, new contacts emerging from hyperspace. She opened her eyes. The sensor display had changed. New icons appeared at the edge of the system. Dozens of them. Human icons. This is Captain Morrison of the Perseverance. A voice crackled over the communication system. We pushed our engines past safety limits to get here. Sorry we are late. Now get your ships behind us and let us show you how Earth fights. The human First Fleet had arrived. Thisra had seen the human ships before. She had studied them, flown beside them, trained with them, but she had never seen them fight. Not truly. Not against a real enemy. What she witnessed next changed her understanding of what humans were. The Perseverance led the charge. 3 kilometers of black metal hurled itself at the enemy formation without hesitation. Its weapons fired continuously, not the precise targeted strikes that Concorde training emphasized, but overwhelming barrages that turned space itself into a killing field. The enemy ships tried to adapt. They shifted their hull composition, spread their formation, brought more vessels to bear. The humans did not care. Where the Concorde had tried to be surgical, the humans were a sledgehammer. They did not pick their targets. They destroyed everything in front of them. All human vessels, execute pattern Omega-7, Morrison's voice commanded. Show them what happens when you threaten our friends. The human fleet split into 3 groups. They moved through the enemy formation like predators through prey. But they did not fight like any predators Thisisra had ever seen. They fought like creatures that had no regard for their own survival. A human cruiser took critical damage to its engine section. Instead of retreating, it accelerated toward the nearest enemy command ship and rammed it at full speed. Both vessels disappeared in a ball of fire. Another human ship was boarded by enemy forces. The crew sealed themselves in the engineering section and overloaded the reactor. They took 100 enemy vessels with them when they died. The Perseverance itself became a target for the largest enemy ships. They surrounded it, pouring fire into its hull. The human battleship's shields flickered and failed. Its armor cracked. Fires broke out across multiple decks, and still it fought. "This is Morrison," the captain's voice said over the fleet channel. "We are taking heavy damage. Life support failing on decks 7 through 15. Half my crew is dead. The other half is fighting boarding parties in the corridors." There was a pause, something that sounded like gunfire in the background. "We are not going to make it out of this." But neither are they. Thisisra watched in horror and amazement as the crippled battleship changed course. It was heading directly for the largest enemy vessel, a twisted thing that seemed to be directing the others. "Morrison, no!" Thisra shouted into the communicator. "Pull back. We can save your ship." "Negative, Admiral. This is what we trained for. This is what humans do." Morrison's voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Tell Ambassador Chen she was right. The galaxy was worth saving." The Perseverance collided with the enemy command ship at full speed. At the moment of impact, every nuclear warhead in the battleship's arsenal detonated simultaneously. The explosion lit up the system. Sensors overloaded. Ships were thrown off course by the shockwave. When the light faded, both vessels were gone, vaporized. Along with the 30 enemy ships that had been too close to escape, the enemy fleet reacted. For the first time since the battle began, they hesitated. Their movements became disorganized. Their attacks less coordinated. The loss of the command ship had hurt them. The remaining human vessels did not give them time to recover. "All ships, press the attack," a new voice commanded. It belonged to Captain Torres of the Defiance, now the senior human officer. "Captain Morrison bought us an opening. Do not waste it." The battle turned. It was still brutal. It was still costly. But the enemy was no longer advancing. They were retreating, falling back toward the shroud, running. Thisisra rallied her surviving ships and joined the pursuit. The weapons they fired felt different now. Not tools of violence, but instruments of justice. The enemy had come to destroy. They had met something that refused to be destroyed. By the time the last enemy ship vanished into the shroud, the system was quiet. The colony world below still held 2 billion survivors. The evacuation transports were safe. The darkness had been pushed back, but the cost was terrible. Thisisra looked at the casualty reports. 18 Concorde ships destroyed. 3,000 officers dead. The humans had lost 7 ships, including the Perseverance. Over 10,000 human sailors had died in the battle. More than half the fleet. She found Captain Torres on the communication channel. The human woman looked exhausted. Her uniform was torn. There was blood on her face. "Captain," Thisra said, "I do not know how to thank you. Your people, what they did." Torres shook her head. "Do not thank us yet, Admiral. This was just the first battle. The enemy will return. They will learn from their mistakes. They will bring more ships. But we stopped them. We won. We survived." Torres's voice was hard. "That is not the same as winning. The war is just beginning." Thisisra wanted to argue. She wanted to believe that the sacrifice of so many had bought more than just time, but she looked at the sensor readings, at the shroud still waiting at the edge of the galaxy, and she knew the human was right. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We rebuild. We train harder. We build more ships." Torres managed a tired smile. And we teach the rest of the galaxy what the Perseverance crew taught the enemy today, that some things are worth dying for. The recording of the battle spread across the Concord within days. Species that had refused to join the coalition watched the human ships sacrifice themselves without hesitation. They watched the Perseverance ram the enemy command ship. They listened to Morrison's final words. Something changed in the galaxy. The factions that had clung to peace began to reconsider. Species that had mocked the humans' violence now looked at them with new eyes. Not fear, though fear remained. Something closer to respect, to hope. If creatures could fight like that, could sacrifice themselves so completely for others, then perhaps the darkness could be defeated. Perhaps survival was possible. Recruitment for the military training programs increased tenfold. Shipyards that had been running at half capacity suddenly could not keep up with demand. Species that had never known war began to learn its ways, driven by the example of humans who had died protecting strangers. Ambassador Chen visited Thisara after the memorial service for the Perseverance crew. The human looked older than she had when they first met. The losses had taken something from her. They were good people, Chen said quietly. Morrison and I had disagreements. She thought I was too cautious. I thought she was too reckless. But she was right. In the end, caution does not win wars. She saved millions of lives, Thisra replied. Her crew saved the entire colony. And now they are gone. Chen's voice cracked slightly. That is the price of war, Admiral. The best ones often pay it first. Thisara did not know what to say. Among her people, death in battle was almost unknown. The Valkyrie had not fought in 8,000 years. She had no rituals for this, no words of comfort, so she simply stood beside the human and shared the silence. After a long while, Chen spoke again. We are building a new ship, the Perseverance 2. It will be a joint project, human technology and conquered resources combined. Every species that wants to contribute will have a role, a symbol. Thisra said, more than that. A promise that what Morrison and her crew started, we will finish. Chen looked up at the stars. The enemy will come again. When they do, they will face a galaxy that has learned to stand together, a galaxy that knows what sacrifice means. Will it be enough? I do not know. Chen's honesty was painful. The shroud is vast. Whatever lives there has been waiting for millions of years. We have had months to prepare. The odds are against us. She turned to face Thisra. But odds can be beaten. My ancestors faced extinction more times than I can count. Climate disasters, nuclear wars, plagues that killed billions. Every time, someone said the odds were impossible. Every time, humanity found a way. Because you are violent, Thisra said. It was not an accusation anymore. It was an observation. Because we refuse to give up. Chen's eyes held fire. Violence is just a tool. What makes humans dangerous is not our weapons or our ships. It is our stubbornness, our absolute refusal to accept defeat. We will fight when fighting is hopeless. We will sacrifice everything for one more chance. We will claw our way back from the edge of extinction again and again until either we win or the universe itself ends. She reached out and placed a hand on Thisra's shoulder. That is what we are trying to teach the galaxy. Not violence, persistence, the will to survive. Captain Morrison understood that. Her crew understood that. They died not because they wanted to, but because it was the only way to keep fighting. Thisra felt tears forming in her eyes. It was a rare thing for her species, this outward display of emotion. But the moment seemed to call for it. I will remember them, she said. We will all remember them. Good. Chen stepped back. Because this is just the beginning. The enemy will return stronger. We need to be ready, and when they come, I want every species in this galaxy to fight like the Perseverance crew fought. Not for themselves, for each other. The days that followed were filled with work, rebuilding, training, preparing. The galaxy had tasted war for the first time in millennia. It was a bitter taste, but it was also clarifying. The old debates about peace and violence faded. The question was no longer whether to fight. The question was how to fight better, how to survive, how to win. Thisra threw herself into the effort. She took command of the training programs for her species, pushing the peaceful Valkyrie to become something they had never been. Warriors, protectors, defenders. It was not easy. Many failed. Some refused. But enough succeeded to give her hope. When the construction of the Perseverance II began, representatives from 30 species attended the ceremony. They watched as the first hull plates were welded into place. Human plates, Valkyrie plates, Shoreth crystals, materials from every corner of the Concorde, joined together into something new. The ship would be the largest ever built, a symbol of unity forged in the fires of war. Its motto, chosen by a council of young officers from every species, was inscribed on the first plate in 1,000 different languages. "We remember, so you do not have to." It was a human saying, Chen explained. A reminder that some burdens are too heavy for individuals to carry, that some memories are too painful to keep, that warriors fight not for glory but so that others can live in peace. Thisra looked at the words and felt something settle in her heart. Understanding, purpose, the will to continue. The darkness was still out there. The enemy was still waiting. The war had only just begun, but for the first time since the humans arrived, Thisra believed they might actually win. The war lasted 12 years. Thisra had stopped counting the battles after the first 100. Each one blurred into the next. Each one took something from her. Friends, ships, the innocence she had once carried without knowing it. She stood now on the bridge of the Rising Storm 3, the third ship to bear that name. The first two had been destroyed in combat. The crews had died fighting. Thisra had survived only because fate was cruel enough to keep her alive while those around her fell. "Admiral, we are receiving coordinates from the scout fleet. They have located the final enemy stronghold." Thisra turned to look at the tactical display. The war had pushed the enemy back into the shroud, system by system, battle by battle. Now only one remained, the heart of the darkness, the place where the enemy had first awakened from their million-year sleep. "Inform the fleet," she ordered. "All ships to rally Point 7. We end this today." The galaxy had changed beyond recognition since the humans arrived. The peaceful Concorde was gone, replaced by something harder and more determined. Species that had never known violence had become warriors. Scientists had become weapons designers. Artists had become tactical planners. Every corner of civilization had been bent toward one purpose: survival. Earth had paid the heaviest price. 2 billion humans had died in the war. The planet that had given birth to the most violent species in the galaxy had been attacked twice. Both times, the enemy had been driven back. Both times, the cost had been measured in cities turned to ash and families torn apart. But humans did not break. They bent. They bled. They mourned. And then they got back up and kept fighting. Thisra had learned that lesson well. She had internalized it so deeply that she sometimes forgot she had ever been anything else. The peaceful admiral who had escorted the Perseverance to Concorde Station was a distant memory. That woman had not known what sacrifice meant. This one did. The fleet gathered over the following hours. It was the largest force ever assembled in galactic history. 2,000 ships from every species that had survived the war. Human battleships flew alongside Valkyrie cruisers. Shoreth crystal vessels formed defensive screens for Melek's carriers. Species that had been strangers were now brothers in arms. The Perseverance II led the formation. It was a monster of a ship, 5 kilometers of armor and weapons, built by 100 worlds working together. Its captain was a human named James Chen, the grandson of the ambassador who had first offered humanity's hand to the galaxy. His grandmother had died 3 years into the war, killed when the enemy attacked Concorde Station. James had taken her place as a symbol of human determination. "All ships. This is Admiral Thisra." Her voice carried across the fleet channel. "Today we strike at the heart of the enemy. Today we end this war. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not survive. The enemy is strong. They are desperate. They will fight with everything they have." She paused, looking at the sensor readings. The shroud loomed before them, vast and dark and terrible. "But we are stronger. Not because of our ships or our weapons, because of what we fight for. Every species in this fleet has lost something in this war. Worlds, friends, family, futures that will never exist. We carry those losses with us. They make us heavy. They make us tired. But they also make us unbreakable." She drew a breath. The humans taught us something when they arrived. They taught us that fear is not weakness, that violence is not savagery, that the will to survive is the greatest weapon any species can possess. Today we honor that lesson. Today we show the darkness what the galaxy has become. She straightened her scales. standing tall on her bridge. All ships, advance. For the fallen. For the living. For the future. The fleet moved forward into the shroud. The darkness swallowed them. Sensors became unreliable. Communication grew difficult. Ships had to navigate by dead reckoning and instinct. It was like flying through a nightmare, each moment bringing new horrors. The enemy met them halfway. They came in waves, endless ships pouring from the depths of the shroud. These were not the same enemies that had attacked Kirath 12 years ago. The war had changed them too. They had grown larger, more powerful, more desperate. They knew they were fighting for survival now, just like the galaxy they had tried to consume. The battle was chaos. Ships died by the dozens. Fleets that had trained together for years were scattered within minutes. Communication broke down. Command structures collapsed. Each captain fought alone, making decisions that would determine the survival of their crews. Thisra lost contact with the Perseverance II within the first hour. She tried to reach Chen, to coordinate the attack, but the shroud ate every signal. All she could do was fight her own battle and trust that others were doing the same. The Rising Storm III carved through enemy formations with weapons that had been perfected through years of war. Thisra had learned to fight like a human, not elegant, not precise, overwhelming. She threw everything at the enemy, accepted casualties, pushed forward regardless of cost. Her ship took damage. Her crew died at their stations, but they kept fighting. Admiral, we have located the primary enemy structure. It is directly ahead. Thisra looked at the sensor display. Through the chaos of battle, she could see it. A massive construct at the center of the shroud. Not a ship. Something older. Something that had been waiting since before the galaxy had life. All ships in range. Concentrate fire on that structure. Everything we have. The response was ragged. Too many ships had been lost. Too many communications were down. But enough heard her. Enough responded. The combined fire of the surviving fleet struck the enemy structure. Energy beams. Kinetic rounds. Nuclear warheads. Everything the galaxy had learned to build in 12 years of war. The structure's shields flickered under the assault, but it did not fall. Admiral, the structure is launching something. New contacts. They are massive. Thisra watched as shapes emerged from the structure. Things that made the largest enemy vessels look small. Living machines or mechanical creatures, she could not tell. They were ancient beyond measure, and they radiated power that made the sensors scream. The old ones. Someone whispered. The Hollow Masters. They had always known the enemy was not natural. Ships did not adapt that quickly. Tactics did not evolve that fast. Something intelligent had been directing the war from the shadows. Now that intelligence was revealing itself. The Hollow Masters moved through the battle like gods among insects. Ships that approached them simply ceased to exist. Weapons that hit them had no effect. The fleet's advance ground to a halt as terror spread through the ranks. Admiral, we cannot win this. We need to retreat. Thisra opened her mouth to agree. The enemy was too strong. The sacrifice of the fleet had been in vain. They had come so far only to fail at the final moment. Then a familiar voice cut through the static. This is Captain Chen of the Perseverance II. All ships, target my coordinates. I am going to give you an opening. Do not waste it. Thisra's heart stopped. She looked at the sensor display and saw the massive human battleship emerging from the chaos. It was badly damaged. Half its hull had been torn away. Fires burned along its length. But it was still moving. Still fighting. Chen, no. Thisra shouted into the communicator. We lost the Perseverance once. We cannot lose her again. You are not losing her, Chen replied. His voice was calm, just like Morrison's had been 12 years ago. You are using her, the way she was meant to be used. The Perseverance II accelerated toward the nearest Hollow Master. Its remaining weapons fired continuously, not to damage, but to draw attention. The ancient creature turned to face this new threat. My grandmother came to the galaxy to save it, Chen said. She believed that humanity's purpose was to protect those who could not protect themselves. She gave her life for that belief. Now I am going to do the same. Chen, Admiral, tell everyone what you saw here. Tell them that humans and Velkari and Shorith and Melix and 100 other species fought together. Tell them that we won because we refused to give up. Tell them that the darkness can be beaten if we stand together. The Perseverance II collided with the Hollow Master at full speed. The explosion was like nothing Thisra had ever seen. The human ship had been carrying special warheads, weapons designed in secret over the past decade, antimatter devices of incredible power, the kind of weapons that could end worlds. Chen had used them to end a god. The Hollow Master came apart in a cascade of fire and light. The shockwave spread through the shroud, destroying enemy ships by the hundreds. The other Hollow Masters reeled, damaged by the death of their brother, and the fleet saw their chance. All ships, attack! Thisra screamed. Now! Before they recover, the galaxy responded. Every surviving ship threw itself at the enemy with nothing held back. They had watched the Perseverance II sacrifice itself. They had heard Chen's final words. They would not let that sacrifice be meaningless. The battle became a slaughter. The Hollow Masters, weakened and confused, could not respond to the coordinated assault. One by one, they fell. The enemy fleet, without leadership, began to break apart. Ships fled in all directions, trying to escape the wrath of a galaxy that had finally learned to fight back. Thisra led a strike force directly at the central structure. Its shields were failing now, its defenses overwhelmed. She watched as Concord ships, working together, tore through its outer layers. For Morrison, she said, launching a spread of missiles. For Chen, for 2 billion humans and every other soul who died in this war. The structure collapsed. Its core imploded under the focused fire of the fleet. A wave of energy spread outward, and everywhere it touched, enemy ships went dark. The connection between the Hollow and their masters had been severed. Without guidance, without purpose, they were nothing but empty machines drifting in the void. The shroud began to clear. Light penetrated the darkness for the first time in millions of years. Sensors returned to normal. Communications came back online. And across the fleet channel, a single voice spoke. This is Admiral Thisra. The enemy structure has been destroyed. The Hollow Masters are dead. The war is over. Silence followed. Then cheering. Ships that had fought together for 12 years celebrated together now. Species that had learned to kill together learned to cry together. The darkness had been defeated. Thisra sat in her command chair and wept. For joy. For sorrow. For all the friends she had lost and would never see again. For a galaxy that had been broken and rebuilt and somehow survived. The return journey took weeks. The fleet was in no condition to hurry. Ships limped home through space that had been a battlefield for over a decade. Along the way, they passed the graves of countless vessels. The debris of battles long past. Concord Station had been rebuilt during the war. It was different now. Harder. More practical. But it was still the heart of galactic civilization. When the fleet arrived, the station was surrounded by crowds. Every docking bay was full. Every viewing platform was packed. Thisra was one of the last to disembark. She had stayed on her ship, filing reports and caring for her wounded crew. When she finally walked down the ramp, she found Ambassador Chen's successor waiting for her. The woman was young by human standards. She had been a child when the war began. She had grown up in a galaxy at war, never knowing the peace that had come before. Admiral Thisra, she said, the Concord wishes to thank you for your service. You will be remembered as one of the greatest heroes of this war. Thisra shook her head. I did only what I was taught. The humans showed us the way. Captain Morrison, James Chen, Ambassador Chen before him. They are the heroes. They are dead. The woman said softly. The dead cannot lead. The living must. She gestured toward the Grand Hall, where representatives of every surviving species had gathered. The Concord is voting on a new charter, a new way of organizing our civilization. We would like you to be part of it. Thisra walked into the Grand Hall. It looked nothing like it had 12 years ago. The elegant marble was gone, replaced by practical metal. The soft lights had been changed to bright ones. The beautiful decorations had been removed to make room for tactical displays that still showed fleet positions from the final battle. But the people were the same. Representatives from 1,000 species gathered to decide the future. They looked different now. Harder. Sadder. Many bore scars, physical or otherwise. The war had marked everyone. The humans had been offered a place of honor at the center of the chamber. Their delegation was small. So many had died. But they stood straight and proud, refusing to show weakness even in this moment of exhaustion. A human admiral Thisra did not recognize stepped forward to speak. 12 years ago the Perseverance arrived at this station, and the galaxy cried out in fear. You saw our weapons and our violence and our readiness for war, and you were terrified. You were right to be. He paused, looking around the chamber. But we did not come to conquer. We came because we knew what was waiting in the darkness. We came because we believed the galaxy was worth saving. And now, after 12 years of war and sacrifice, the darkness has been defeated. He bowed his head. We have lost so much. Earth lost 2 billion sons and daughters. The conquered lost worlds beyond counting. Every species here has graves that were not there before. The cost of victory was terrible. He raised his head again. But we won. Together, human and Velkari, Shoreth and Melix. Species that did not know each other's names 12 years ago now fight and die side by side. That is our greatest achievement. Not the weapons we built or the enemies we destroyed. The unity we forged. He looked at Thisra. Admiral, will you speak? Thisra was not prepared. She had not expected to address the assembly, but she walked to the speaker's platform anyway. She had learned, in 12 years of war, that being prepared was a luxury they could not always afford. When the humans arrived, she began. I was afraid. I thought they were monsters, violent creatures who would destroy everything the Concord had built. I was wrong. She looked at the human delegation. The humans are not monsters. They are survivors. They carry scars from millennia of fighting, not because they love violence, but because they understand what happens to those who cannot defend themselves. They came to us not as conquerors but as teachers. They taught us to fight. They taught us to sacrifice. They taught us that peace is not the absence of war but the result of vigilance. She turned to face the full assembly. The old Concord is gone. That galaxy of peace and comfort and beautiful lies died the moment the Perseverance arrived. In its place, we have built something different, something harder, something that knows the taste of blood and the weight of sacrifice. Her voice grew stronger. But we have also built something better. A galaxy where 1,000 species fight as one, where the strong protect the weak, where no one is left behind in the darkness. That is the legacy of this war. That is what our dead died to create. She raised her hand toward the human delegation. Earth's battleship arrived and the galaxy cried out in fear. But fear taught us strength. Strength taught us unity. And unity gave us victory. She dropped her hand. Let us honor that legacy. Let us build a future worthy of the price we paid. Let us never forget what the humans showed us, that the universe does not care about peace or civilization or hope. The universe only cares about who survives. She stepped back from the platform. We survived. Now let us make sure we always will. The assembly rose to its feet. Every species, every representative, every voice joined together in a sound that the Grand Hall had never heard before. Not cheering, not celebration. Something deeper, acknowledgement, of pain and loss and triumph, of a galaxy that had been broken and rebuilt, of a future that remained uncertain but was no longer hopeless. Thisra stood among them and let the sound wash over her. She thought of Morrison and Chen. She thought of her crew members who had died. She thought of the peaceful galaxy she had once known, gone forever, and she thought of the new galaxy that had taken its place, harder, stronger, united by war and sacrifice and the stubborn refusal to give up. Earth's battleship had arrived, and the galaxy had cried out in fear. But fear had become strength, and strength had become salvation. The darkness was gone. The light remained. And for the first time in 12 years, Thisra allowed herself to hope for what the future might bring. The war was over. The rebuilding could begin. And throughout the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and 1,000 ships, the names of those who had fallen were spoken with reverence. They had given everything so that others could live. They had taught the galaxy how to fight. They had saved the stars, and they would never be forgotten.